just north of it. That's from
Awesome.
Welcome
Hi
back.
everyone. Thank you so much for being here tonight. My name is Adelman and I am chair of the Community Council. We have a good lineup of agenda items for you today, so thanks for coming out. And thanks also to those of you who are watching from home on our Facebook live stream. If you've missed our previous meetings, such as our March meeting last month, those videos are available on YouTube and on Facebook. We have a copy of the YouTube link on the printed agendas at the back of the room, but you can also access them in the emails that we send out. Speaking of emails, we will have a sign-in sheet going around the room today. If you'd like to get our email notifications, you'll receive just 1 or 2 emails from us a month letting you know about our upcoming meetings and volunteer opportunities. But that sign-in sheet is more than just an email sign-up. You're not obligated to sign up for our email. We use that sign-up sheet just to gauge how many people have attended our meetings, to see how many folks we're reaching at each meeting. And then it's a good opportunity to follow up if you have any questions. We also have, yes, go ahead.
Volunteers?
Yes, we will get to that.
Okay.
Would you want to talk about that now? Any suggestions?
Separate.
Cool.
Yeah. I was just going to ask, when we do our sign-up sheet next time, can we have a box whether you live within our community or whether you live outside of our community, so that we know who's actually representing our community?
Yeah, the email addresses that people write down often are a good way of indicating that, because you'll see a lot of our guests will put down their work email addresses, so that's a good indicator. Like, there were a number of people from the city here last month. We knew most of them probably didn't live in our area.
Yeah.
But that's a great idea.
That would be helpful.
And what I can do right now is, just by show of hands, who currently lives in Liberty Wells or owns or operates a business in Liberty Wells? Fantastic. Thanks for coming out tonight. Great.
We just had some people that were voting, and we had about 12 people that were voting 2 months ago that didn't live in our community. So I was just thinking it would be a good idea.
Thanks for bringing that to my attention. We also are currently in the process of getting ready for the launch of our new website. This is going to be a great resource for the community, again, to find out about opportunities to get involved in events, to connect with your neighbors, and to get city resources in one location. All good websites also have some good photos to make you feel at home when you're visiting. So we have a community photo contest that we're running right now. If you have any photos of Liberty Park or any businesses, people in the neighborhood that you're particularly proud of, feel free to submit those photos to us. You'll have a chance to be entered for some cool prizes, and you'll also, if your photos are chosen, will be displayed on our website and in our social media. So please take an opportunity to share those with us.
Nice.
Also, a couple of quick things. Tim Cosgrove, unfortunately, could not be here from the mayor's office tonight. So he asked me to just bring your attention to some small development workshop opportunities that are being done in conjunction with the Leonardo. There are flyers at the back of the room. I'm only just looking at this now, so I'm not completely informed on the opportunities, but it sounds like it's a workshop for folks who are interested in becoming small-scale developers, maybe don't know where to start, or are looking for some resources to help them out. So take a look at the flyer for more information for that. And for those of you at home, we'll also try to post a link on social media later. Another thing to note, plan ahead on Saturday. The Salt Lake City Marathon is coming back to our neighborhood, which, as you probably know from previous years, impacts 600 East for most of the day. So if you're like me and you live near State Street and you try to shop at the Fresh Market on 900 South, you probably want to save grocery shopping for a different day. 600 East will be closed from about, I think it's about 6:30 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. in most areas, but you should probably plan on it 5th East as well. There are flyers on the back of the room, in the back of the room, with maps showing the road closures and the times, and that's also available on the Marathon's website as well.
Was that a mayor-a-thon or a marathon?
Marathon. Yes, we will have a mayor-a-thon coming up soon too. Let me get back to the agenda here.
It will be a mayor-a-thon.
Okay, one last Liberty Wells Community Council announcement I'd like to make. So we are getting ready for our next season of board elections. I serve as chair as the Community Council Board, but I also serve with 12 other really passionate and dedicated volunteers who are part of the Liberty Wells Community Council Board. Aside aside from just being here at meetings on Wednesdays, this board helps organize the Liberty Park Farmers Market that takes place on Fridays in Liberty Park. It organizes the British Field Day fundraiser, the car show that takes place in Liberty Park in June. We run the first encampment celebration that takes place around July 24th in conjunction with the Pioneer Day celebrations. And we also have a lot of initiatives and projects that we're working on in the background too, to make sure that our community is safe and that we're looking out for the best interests of our community. So this is a great opportunity. If you are interested in getting involved in an issue that's important to you in the neighborhood, if you're not quite sure what you want to do yet, but you want to be involved, you want to look for opportunities to volunteer, our board nominations will take place on May and June. Our next meeting is coming up. We also have a board volunteer form that you can fill out. You probably got it in the email that went out for today's meeting. And there's a link to it in our agenda today. This shows just some of the board leadership positions that are available. And just to name a few, you actually brought up who is our zoning expert right now. So one of the positions that's available is our community development and facilities chair. This person, it really is a position of vision. This person could do anything from focusing on bike trails and sidewalks in the neighborhood to really focusing on some of the development initiatives that are happening within Liberty Wells. So there's a lot that can be done with that position, and it really depends on the person who wants to be in that role. We're also looking for folks to help coordinate volunteers for our farmers market. It is all volunteer run, which is a huge effort throughout the summer. And we need someone who's really good at working with people and helping to energize people around volunteering for that. There are several others listed on the form, so please take a look. Don't hesitate to reach out to us if you have questions. We'd be more than happy to tell you more about the time commitment and what things could be expected for that. So I hope to see some of you coming up for elections.
Can we take another poll? Just make this an interactive meeting.
Yes.
Who received the email and opened it? Okay, that
Is that the one that was from our community council?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fantastic. I'm glad you got
Great,
it.
thank you.
Excellent. Any questions before I move on? Yes.
Just one thing, and I know in the last meeting, it was mentioned that maybe that Salazar had changed assignment or something, and now you're saying that Tim Cosgrove is working for the mayor. Did they switch roles or something? Do you happen to know specifically what Nate's job is now and what Tim's specific job is?
Is Nate going to the county? Is that what people are saying?
No, I think
No?
Nate's still in
No,
his
Tim took Nate's place,
Oh,
and then Nate is
Oh, that's
some
to a
sort
school
of
board.
expanded
Yeah.
role, still in the mayor level.
Yeah, and then doing the school board in addition to that, yeah. Yeah, but Tim Cosgrove is still our representative from the mayor's office. He just couldn't make it tonight.
okay. So it's really Tim that we should be talking to
Yep.
on the issue rather than Nate directly
Nate's a great help, but Tim is our direct representative on things.
on things there.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
No, thank you, Andy.
Oh, and before you move on, I was just going to give a shout out, kudos to the folks that do our first encampment, and I know that they're starting to plan it now. So, do you guys want people to get involved now, or?
Maryland would be the one to ask for the park celebration.
And we'll put it on the agenda when we get there.
Oh,
The
is it
farmers
on
market. The farmers market is kicking off first, so we're really drumming up volunteers for that. The next effort, once the farmers market kicks off, will be for the first encampment part. It starts about 2 months after the farmers market starts. So
I know they're starting to organize now.
Yeah.
yeah, we have a good
Yeah,
group
but
of
if you're
folks that are
interested.
on that committee.
Okay, I'll talk to you then.
Great.
I'd like to help.
Excellent. Without further ado, I would like to invite up Josh to start our next agenda item. Thanks, Josh.
Yay, Josh!
Josh, will you make sure and repeat questions if they're a little quiet for those online here?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
So my name is Josh Elstein. I'm the program manager at Salt Lake Community College's Center for Arts and Media, which, for those who don't know, it's one of the multiple campuses SLIC has throughout the county. And we are located at the old South High building at the corner of State Street and 1700 South. I'm just curious, how many of you have been to our South City campus before for an event or a class? All right, a lot of you. So just a little bit of background. For the South City campus, it's home of the School of Arts, Communication, and Media, and it really works to serve as the active arts campus for the community college. which means for our mission it's not just an academic one, it's also one of engagement. So because of a few of the items I'm going to talk about, we try to be an artistic and cultural hub for the neighborhood, for Liberty Wells, and then beyond, especially because of the college's mission of really being the community's college, making sure that we have access and avenues for everybody to participate and engage with the various campuses for the college, and in our case, specifically the arts and culture. So at the Center for Arts and Media, we have a few different venues, a few different engagement opportunities. The Grand Theater is one of our largest. This is an 1,100-seat theater that, in addition to a professional theater company that does plays throughout the year, does various engagement events, does concerts and performances, both free and ticketed. They're also the latest and largest Salt Lake venue for the Sundance Film Festival. So we feel for Liberty Wells, the Grand Theater is really one of the jewels as far as a cultural hub to bring people from the neighborhood together into their own neighborhood to engage with these kind of arts. The Grand is part of our engagement mission, also has a program called Grand Youth that involves after-school programs, summer camps, which I've actually got some information in the back for anybody who's interested. And because of the Grand Youth program and the generous grant we've received, we also offer a free ticket for every junior high and high school student in the state, actually, and any junior high and high school teacher in the state, to get a free ticket to any regular Grand season production. So for students in your lives, if you want to get them involved with theater, they can go to the box office or call, and they get a free ticket to any show. Our season is actually ending next month in May with West Side Story. The Grand also hosts, it's a professional theater company, but they do host open auditions as well, so if there's any actors in the community that want to get involved, that's a great way to do so as well. Other avenues for engagement at the Center for Arts and Media, we have what's called our Georges and Dolores Story Eccles Gallery, which is an open gallery that hosts exhibits by both our students and faculty, as well as local and national artists. That is open whenever the building's open. It's free and open to the public. We are part of Gallery Stroll, so usually the third Friday of every month we host opening receptions. So if you're close to the neighborhood and you want to come by, it's always a great way to see local art, national art, and connect with those with the art community here in Liberty Wells. In addition to all of that, we've got our student performers. So we've got concerts, we've got film screenings, we've got dances, we've got lectures and conferences, many of which are free and open to the public. The idea being that, once again, as the community college, we want to serve as the hub for culture here at Liberty Wells. So if you're interested in any of those different opportunities, or if you want to get engaged or get involved, I've left some material in back as well as my cards. One thing as part of being the community college is we love connecting and working with community organizations. So if there's any avenues to connect or partner, we are always open to discuss those. So feel free to grab one of my cards. You can also go to SLC's website, slcc.edu, and go to the events calendar to see events on campus. So come and talk. Really hoping to this. The neighborhood, the community is so amazing. We want to make sure as the community that we are connected to what's going on here because of the location of our campus. Any questions or anything? Yes?
Are you the branch that has the culinary arts, or is that?
We are not. That's held at a different campus.
Okay, that's the other campus. Okay.
Yeah, so with Salt Lake Community College, instead of one large campus, although we do have some larger campuses around the county, we've got, I believe, 9 or 10 different satellite campuses total, and some of them are focused on specific schools. So we're mostly arts, common media.
Arts.
Yeah, any other questions? Yes.
Josh, and I don't know if people know this, but in the past, we used, when I was chair, we used to have the community council meetings at Salt Lake Community College before the remodel, before the $47 million Center for Arts and Media came to be. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if people know how fabulous it is, and maybe sometime we could, if the chair would be willing, host a meeting at Salt Lake Community College and have a tour sometime when it would be appropriate, because that way we can engage a little bit more and people will understand. This is a state-of-the-art facility in the
We
entire
did like
state.
6 months ago, didn't we? Yeah.
Did you do a tour?
We had a meeting
We
there.
walked
The
through the
meeting was
college.
held there.
Oh, was it? Okay, cool.
Well, that's actually a great segue. We're always happy to give tours to people who are looking. And since I'm talking a lot about engagement, just to go back to the academic side for the community college, the Center for Arts and Media opened about 5 years ago as the technical training center for the city, for the state, and I'd say even the Intermountain West, for particularly digital arts and media. So for those who haven't been there or haven't seen, if you are looking to study film, music, television, we really view if you want to create in any of those different areas, whether it's visual art or digital art. We have facilities that are really unmatched in public higher ed institutions throughout the state. So for any students, whether they're coming out of high school, whether they're doing it for personal enrichment, whether they're looking to go into the industry or already in these industries, we also have amazing technical training centers and training facilities at the South City campus as well, which we feel is also a big component of engaging not just wide and a broad range, but also with the community as well. So we actually have some very cool engagement programs we run. One is the Beloved Community Project, which is a photography project. We connect with Whittier Elementary School, which is our next door neighbor, as well as Glendale Junior High, where we go into the classrooms of all the 6th, 7th, and 8th grade art students and 6th grade class at Whittier. We bring a photography and an English professor. We talk about Martin Luther King Jr.'s idea of beloved community. And then we have the students actually take cameras out for a week to take photos of their own community and why it connects to them, why it's the area they love. And then in our Eccles Art Gallery, every February, we hold an exhibit for student art. So that's just another example of how we try to connect the academic side to the community as well.
That's fun. Maybe some of those students could enter into our Liberty Wells photo contest.
We should actually.
That's a great
Wouldn't
idea.
that
I'd
be
be happy to
awesome?
share that with the teachers and have the students submit
That's a
it.
great idea.
I think that's a great idea.
That would be so incredible.
Any other questions or anything? Great, well thank you so much, and once again I brought some information in the back with our offerings for the community, and once again my card's back there. If you have any other questions or follow-up, please feel free to contact me. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Josh.
Thanks, Josh. And I failed to mention before I introduced him, feel free to have a seat, sorry. I'm not putting him on the spot, I promise. Part of the reason why Josh is here tonight is we, the executive committee of the Liberty Wells Community Council did sit down with the dean of the Arts and Media School, with Josh, and with the creative director at the Grand Theater to really open a dialogue around partnerships that we can have between Liberty Wells Community Council and Salt Lake Community College. It really is a gem having this campus in our neighborhood, and just from the wealth of things that Josh even mentioned right now, there are a lot of untapped resources there and free resources that are available to us as a community. I personally, one of my favorite date nights with my husband is to go to the Grand Theater. They have great plays there, and of course you have some restaurants not too far, so you can make it a full date night. And the Sundance Films, we go to that location exclusively every year just to see movies within walking distance of our house. So it's really great. Yeah.
I don't know if any of you know this, and I don't know if Josh, you're aware of this, but when they converted the Salt Lake Community College actually took over the South City camp, but the South Salt Lake High School, there is a scholarship committee that still exists as far as I know for people that live in the community, and it was once headed by Bill Marcroft. I'm not sure who's doing it now. So people that have lived continuously, and it's kind of grandfathered to people that would have gone to South High so that they get scholarships to attend Salt Lake Community College.
Yeah, I believe the South High Alumni Association still supports a specific scholarship for descendants of alumni of the high school.
Very cool. That's excellent.
Wherever they live.
Well, I'll look into that and see if we can find the information and share that with folks in the community.
Yeah,
That's great.
because we want to keep our youth here.
Yes. Well, and definitely look forward. I think we can expect to have more opportunities to partner with us, and we'll keep these guys engaged at our meetings and through other opportunities throughout the year. So stay tuned for more. Thanks. Okay. Next on our agenda, Chris, are you here too?
No, I was just gonna ask
Yes.
you quick, are we gonna give the fire department a chance to?
Oh yeah, thank you for being here. I'm sorry. I was so zeroed in on everyone who is in the audience here. I just completely blanked. Yes, please. Give us a report.
We won't take much of your time.
Thank you. If you can just state your name, let us know who you are. And
Appreciate you. And if you have about an hour-long presentation, we're up for it.
Hi, good evening. My name is Matt Gillis from Salt Lake City Fire. I'm a captain at Station 8, just over here on 13 South and Main Street. So tonight I kind of want to start off talking about the weather we've had recently, the heavy snow, the wind. It's causing a lot of problems with the electrical system in Salt Lake City. A lot of transformer fires, a lot of lines down. I don't know if any of you have been affected by it personally, but it seems like last week that's been about 80% of our calls. So what to do if line's down? You can't really tell, first of all, if it's energized or not. So we always treat all power lines as energized. So don't go near them, stay away from them. And then you can't really tell if power line's a power line or if it's a cable line. the power lines are high, the cable lines are low, but at night, you can't really tell, so just treat everything like an energized electrical line, and we'll come out and do what we can. Unfortunately, there's nothing we can really do for what we call a pole fire. Poles are soaked with tar and creosote, and not creosote, but tar, so they last a long time. So it makes for a great fire. They just burn and burn and burn. We can't put them out until we know for sure if they've been de-energized, which usually on nights like that will take anywhere from 20 minutes to 3 or 4 hours before the power company can come out. So be patient. I know it's frustrating, there's nothing we can really do, but it happens. Yeah.
So I just had 2 questions. One, on the fiber optic lines, I was told that if they break and you look into it, you could possibly be blinded if it pulsates and you see that. I don't know if that's correct, but that's what I was told on the fiber optics. The big ones that are, the bundles.
Yeah, I don't know. That's a good question. In fact,
Yeah,
that's the
so they
first
say
I've heard
just
of it.
don't even look at them.
Yeah, I would treat all lines as extremely dangerous.
Yeah.
Don't drive over them, don't get near them. Call them in when you see them.
Don't roast marshmallows.
Don't roast marshmallows. If you're in your vehicle and there's one across your vehicle, don't get out of your vehicle. Everybody's heard that. We had one instance of that about a month ago.
No,
to mention that. So stay in your vehicle because you're grounded because of the tires on your car. And just be patient.
The road,
yeah, don't get out. Yeah.
If you have a pole fire and you felt that it was bad enough that you had to get it put out now, do you guys have authority and the skill to dead the pole? To cut the power through the
No,
pole?
so what we do in situations like that is we'll show up and we'll set up what we call an exposure fire. So we'll let the pole burn, but if we think if it's going to come down and hit a house or a garage or a vehicle, then we'll do the best we can to put it out, but we'll set up in case it does come down to put everything out immediately.
Okay, but can you cut the lines going to the pole to stop it?
No.
Is that because you're not trained, or you
it's just,
they don't have the authority.
We don't have the authority. That's it. The power company, they own those lines, and it's their property, and only they can turn them on.
Tell them they need to come put it out.
Yeah, and usually if it's something like that, we can expedite them, and they can get crews there a little sooner.
Okay.
And then my second question was just on the trouble that had happened behind the strip mall on State Street between 14th and 1500 South. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Mm-hmm.
There was a generator that went out, and I don't know if the whole system is. Maybe you know about that.
I don't.
Wayne? I don't either, but I read about it in the paper, and they had all these generators, and some of the business owners lost all of their food in their business. So I just wondered if there was anything that you had heard about, but there was no fire related to that.
When we have situations like this where it causes power outages, power surges, it creates like false alarms or electrical spikes in all systems, and so it does do a lot of damage to personal property or business property.
So can that blow out your breaker box or whatever?
It can do a lot of things that really are above my pay grade.
Yeah, way above mine.
Yeah, I've heard about popping breakers. I've never heard of like a power line going down and then actually causing a fire in a house via the power lines. I have heard about popping breakers. So I just want to check those.
Okay, sounds good, thanks. Hopefully we're upgraded.
Yeah. Anything else before we move on about power lines? So April is Earthquake Preparedness Month. A week from tomorrow is Shakeout Utah. It'll be at 10:15 a.m. If you're not familiar with it, it's just a nationwide preparedness drill. Every state does it on a different date, I think. Probably a different date. Ours is a week from tomorrow, so you can still get involved if you want to. The website is shakeout.org/Utah. There's information on the back table. Most schools, we're going to participate. The university does. I think Salt Lake Community College does. And yeah, it's just a chance to kind of go through what you would do in case of an earthquake. Make sure you can get to your 96-hour kits, which I'm sure everybody's got, right? They're all up to date and they're easy to get to, so you know where those are, and then you've got an evacuation plan if you're in your home. A couple of tips are, if you're in bed during an earthquake, they say don't get out of bed. Roll over on your stomach, stay in bed. It's the safest place for you. Protect the back of your neck. Anywhere else, you kind of drop, cover, and hold on is the mantra. So if you're in a high-rise or in a store, try to take cover under something shallow like a table, a chair. If you're outside, just get to an open area. If you're in your vehicle, just pull over to the side of the road and wait it out. So.
Are you doing any CERT trainings? Or is that just with the police department? Or do you guys?
We do. We offer CERT trainings. We have a training division that coordinates our CERT. You can access that through our website. I don't know if there's any classes going on right now, but it's a great way to get involved and help your community, because what we do, how we respond to a big incident like that is we go into what's called branch operations. So we coordinate the city into 4 different areas, east, west, north, and south. We're in the south division, so we'll accumulate 3 engines in a truck and a battalion chief officer, and we'll go as an entire unit to what we call triage the whole area. We'll start with schools if they're in session, then we'll go to hospitals. Any place that's a high population density, we'll start with those, and then we kind of work down a list. Unfortunately, we get to residences last. So when they say 96-hour kits, it really could be 2 or 3 days before somebody's able to help you.
Yeah, in the past they told us to, like on our blocks, we had block captains or whatever, and then we would identify people that had special needs, like if somebody needed oxygen or if somebody had a mobility impairment, and we try to make sure that they were okay. Yeah,
that's the same kind of system that we do, just on a different scale. You want to identify your most at-risk people and then tend to their needs first, and then just kind of work down the list. Okay. So if you guys do that as a community, that's awesome.
It's actually a board position that's currently open right now.
Oh, board! Another plug for the board.
Yeah, so we traditionally have had really strong representation both on the public safety. Getting into the camera. We traditionally have had really good representation on the community council board, both on the public safety side with Neighborhood Watch and also on the CERT side. We have great resources for getting community members who are interested in taking CERT training. For those of you who don't know, CERT stands for Community Emergency Response Training. And they're very affordable classes. I believe it's only $30.
Something like that.
And
not very long.
You get good materials that you can keep at home with you as resources. And by the end of the course, you have the knowledge to be able to prepare your block, your neighbors, or even the larger community around you for an emergency were it to happen. And it's really important because, like you said, you can't rely on the emergency folks to be there immediately because they're going to be dealing with a lot of issues. So it's going to be up to us and our neighbors to take care of each other when an emergency happens. So that's a really important role for our board, yes.
I did start in another state, but the swag bag is just worth it alone. Right? Like you get like skills, but it is a lot of its funding is federal funding, and so there's a lot of stuff that you get for completing the course.
Yep.
And we are looking for someone and we have a couple of scholarships. So if somebody felt like they could give the time but maybe not that money, we have a couple of scholarships through
and you don't need to be CERT trained to be in the board position. It's really a galvanizing position to help get people involved and access those resources.
Yeah, no, that's okay. I was going to say you learn things like basic first aid, how to shut off gas lines, which I think everybody as a homeowner, if you're a homeowner, should know how to locate where your gas comes into your house and where the shut off is and how to turn it off, because that's the first thing you should do in an earthquake is shut your gas off. What else did I teach? I can't remember.
Oh, I was in Virginia, so I got to learn about different local terrorist groups and things like
that.
I don't know if we have quite that issue.
Anyhow, it's a great program. If you want to get involved, I recommend it.
That's awesome.
And then, I'm sorry.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, I'm glad to hear you have scholarships, because we have people that wanted to do it and they couldn't afford to do it. And it was, at the time, it was like $35, and you're already dedicating your time, and they just couldn't afford to do that. So that's awesome if you guys can have scholarships for people.
We do have scholarships.
Awesome. Okay, thank you.
So lastly, the snowpack. We're almost double what we normally should be this time of year. So they're telling us prepare for flooding, which as a fire department, all we really do is tell you guys prepare for flooding, because again, that's not something we can really do. We'll come to your homes and make sure everybody's safe, and we can extricate you if necessary, but if you've had flooding issues in the past where your basement gets flooded, you might want to think about getting some sandbags on hand, that kind of stuff. Because
you guys building an ark in your lot over there on 13th South?
You should. Yeah.
No, I didn't realize that we were in a flood zone or flood capacity now.
Does anybody here in 1983 remember those floods?
Oh, are you serious?
Yeah, I was younger, but they had a river going down.
Oh yeah, I remember that. The kayak on the State Street.
Yeah,
I think 13-2.
Yeah,
so one more thing to prepare for.
Because that hits us hard because of Liberty Park, that it fills up, and even 13th South was.
I'm not sure why that's
an overflow.
An avenue for it.
There's a confluence of creeks right there.
Yeah, it's big. Because we were blocked off for a long time. Yeah.
Nope. Any questions? Anything else?
Wow.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Have a great night.
Thank you guys for being out here tonight. I appreciate it. Thanks, Wayne, for pointing that out. Okay, next up on our agenda, we have our very first accessory dwelling unit coming to Liberty Wells, which is pretty exciting. This is an opportunity, this is a unique project. This is not a big developer coming in to talk about a mixed-use project on a significant corner. This is an application to build an ADU in the backyard of a single-family home. So I really want this to be an opportunity to kind of learn about the ADU process, to really keep it specific to the actual individual project. And because this is the first one that's coming to our neighborhood, I think this is a learning opportunity for all of us, and also perhaps an opportunity for those of us who are considering ADUs to learn more about the process as well. So Chris, if you want to come up, and Allie, are you here as well?
It's for my property.
Oh,
actually,
fantastic!
So I'm
That's
more than happy
great.
to talk about it.
Come on up.
Okay.
That's great.
That's so cool.
But I think Chris will take the lead. I don't know. It says it has his name on there. So.
I'm Chris from Salt Lake City Planning Department. We received an application for an accessory dwelling unit, or ADU for short. ADUs are kind of one of the ways that Salt Lake City's trying to tackle affordable housing. They're designed to be as minimal impact as possible, but still be able to provide extra housing for people to live. I can go over processes if anybody wants to know about that. Project specific, that's up to you to kind of go over what you're proposing, but I can help along the way if you guys have questions about the process and
Do
stuff.
you mind giving us a quick review of kind of what the rules are? There's a kind of some I think those
Specifics,
change.
yeah.
So can you mind reviewing that quickly for us?
Yeah, so there's two different kinds of ADUs. One's called an attached ADU, whether that's a basement or if you do an addition to a home or segregate part of the home as an accessory dwelling unit, or you can build a detached ADU. They both kind of have different standards as far as size regulations. Detached ADUs have a lot more regulation because you're building an extra structure on the property. Attached ones don't have size restrictions as long as you don't exceed 50% of the principal structure. Detached ADUs can be a maximum of 650 square feet. They kind of adhere to the same standards as just an accessory structure on the property, meaning they can't exceed 17 feet in height. There is provisions that will allow it to go above that to a 24-foot height limit as long as it doesn't exceed the height of the principal structure. But you have different setback requirements, so you have to have 10-foot setbacks on all sides to kind of buffer that.
So a lot of us have detached garages that don't have the 10-foot setback, so will we be grandfathered in if the pad's there?
So there's some provisions to that. Typically, if you want to go to a second story addition, so if you just have a single story garage and you want to go to a second story addition, that addition has to meet those 10-foot setback requirements. If you just have a regular detached garage, then those setback requirements can be waived if you're converting that garage into an ADU. So it kind of depends on how you want to turn that garage into an ADU. There's different requirements that go along with that.
What if your lot is barely over 20 feet wide? 600 square foot accessory dwelling unit if your lot is 25 feet wide.
Yeah, so that's some people have come in with those issues, and unfortunately, it's kind of one of those, if you can't meet those qualifications, then we just can't allow you to do it. So some people, and just to put it out there, variances aren't available for that. That's not something that we offer a variance for. Whether that changes sometime in the future to allow that, I don't know. I don't see that happening based on how long it took them to get the ADU ordinance passed in the first place, but that's something that could happen. But
Well, Chris, so you're saying there are two types: the one that's attached and the one that's detached. Not it's independently standing.
yes.
So if you can't build it in your yard because your property is too small for that, can you just like dig out your basement like my neighbors did and have an ADU in the basement?
Yep, of course.
But are you talking, can you have an ADU in your basement and an ADU independent? No, you can only
You can
have
only
one.
have one ADU per property.
Okay.
With that, going along with that, to dig out the basement, do all that, no matter what kind of ADU, it all has to meet
Code.
building code standards.
Right.
So, we've had a lot of applications where people just want to turn a shed or something like that into an ADU, which is possible, but those structures have to meet current building code standards. So,
So they're not grandfathered? So some of the, like the structure, if you, like, everybody watched them remodel McDonald's here, and they just took, so they made a remodel instead of a new build because they kept one wall from 1940 whatever, and then they just rebuilt around that. So, I mean,
it still has to meet all the IBC and IRC code to like in Friar. So for your example,
Like
if you have
standards?
a garage that's only 1 foot separation from your property line, you'll still have to do a 2-hour firewall rating to bring that up to code to be able to have it living as a primary structure rather than just a cool structure, right?
so do you know what I mean? Like existing structure versus new construction.
Any type of new construction or change of use, so converting a garage into a dwelling,
Okay.
that automatically requires it to meet current building code standards.
Okay.
So if let's say you had a structure that was used as a living quarters and it was legally done that way, you could change it to an ADU, but it would have to meet those new current standards.
Okay.
I don't know why you would like a duplex.
Well, another qualification is you have to live there, right? You have to live on site.
Yes, it has
So
to be
you can't-
owner occupied.
Right.
Let's pull some questions about process for the end. I'm curious to hear a little bit more about the specific project that's going to happen.
Can I quickly request utility people here that you have an ADU booklet that they can download to answer a lot of these questions?
Yes.
There is one.
Yeah, so it's a very, very good resource, mainly because us trying to explain it is kind of hard. We'll belt out all the numbers and stuff because we know what it is. So a lot of times we have to stop and think that maybe you guys don't know, kind of what we're talking about. But that ADU handbook is really nice because there's graphical displays, information kind of put graphically to where you can see what a detached looks like compared to an attached ADU. It goes over essentially every aspect of the ADU ordinance, except for some weird ones that we've run into. But that's available on the planning section of the Salt Lake City website, so just slc.gov/planning. If you scroll down just a little bit, you'll see a section called Our Projects, and it's just right there. You can click on it, download it, or just take a look at it, and it'll go over pretty much anything you would want to know about an ADU. And then if you do have questions, you can always contact us and we can explain maybe what some of it means, or if you have something that just wasn't addressed in the ADU handbook, we're always willing to help you.
I just, before we move on, I just one more question of clarification on an existing detached garage in an old, of course, they're all in the neighborhood, they're old homes, is basically built on the corner of the property line, so property line to property line. Would you be able to take that down and build an ADU on those same parameters without the 10-foot inset if you rebuilt the garage and put the ADU as a second story?
No. If you take it down, then that's gone, and you just have to meet what the zoning requirement is.
That is impossible.
You don't go any higher.
Well, you
It
have
could
to
be-
go over 17 feet if you're gonna have a garage underneath it and the ADU. on
Yeah,
top.
but if you're just building, so some people will just build a standalone ADU without the garage, and you do it at 17 feet, then those setbacks are 4 feet.
So let's hear a little bit more about
Yeah, so my property is located on 233 East Williams Avenue, which is about 1,000 south. I've owned that property for about 3.5 years or
yourself?
I love living here. I love the Liberty Wells community. So I'm excited to do this. I was really excited to hear about the new ordinance change for the ADUs because as a young homeowner, stuff's expensive and it allows me to create an extra income for me and be able to stay in my place and afford it and create more property value and a little extra income. So for me personally, I'm doing a detached ADU that is not on a garage, but totally detached in the back portion of my property. It's 4-foot setback on either side and 4-foot setback in the rear.
And just to pause you for a second,
Yeah.
I do have some flyers if you listen to
Cool. So yeah, that's the proposition. I don't know if you guys, some of the people here I recognize, some not. I actually presented at the last community council. So I'm one of the founding partners for a new project that we're doing specifically designed around ADUs that are prefab modular ADUs that make it a lot less affordable and a lot more affordable and a lot less evasive than traditional construction. And we're really excited about the technology and the push there to use this technology in creating these structures off-site and actually putting them and placing them in my backyard personally. So we're rolling that out throughout the city, but we're actually doing this first on my property to go through the process, kind of work out the bugs and get the manufacturing started there. So we're excited about rolling these new structures out. We actually had built the prototype unit that we're going to be using, and the unit is actually fully built, and it's placed over just off of 17th South and 11th East right now, at the Brownies little shop there in the parking lot. So it's just there temporarily as kind of a pop-up we invite you guys to go and check it out. It's going to be the exact same unit that I'll actually place in my backyard, not the specific one because this was just a prototype built, but it will be the exact same one. So if you guys are interested in even seeing what it would look like on my property or if it would look like on yours, we're having some open houses and you can kind of follow along that. I'll give some information if you guys are interested in that.
Are you Modal? Or
Yeah.
Modal?
Yeah, I'm one of the founding partners here.
Okay, I was trying to find your website and I couldn't find it.
It's not quite live yet. We're just
Okay.
there. I think they're still working on some of the assets to put in. So,
Okay, thanks.
yeah. So Modal is the company that we started, and that's specifically designed around this prefabricated ADU, prefabricated back guest house ADU, and we're putting it on my property because I personally find it valuable, and so I ended up purchasing one and going through the process there. It meets all of the IBC and IRC code. And it meets all the zoning regulations, and thankfully my property was kind of suited to fit all those requirements. My unit, just so you guys have an idea, is 32 feet long. It's 13'6" wide, and it's 11'6" high. So it's just a totally detached structure in the back.
How are you handling the sewer and the water?
Yeah, so sewer and water's handled. We've had numerous conversations with the city, and we've gone back and forth probably 10 or so times. The ordinance allowance allows you to tie into your home instead of running directly to the street. So what we'll do on my specific property is my sewer lateral is near the back of the home, and then it actually 90s over to where to the driveway is and goes in, and that's pretty standard in a lot of the Liberty Wells and a lot of the city how it goes. So what we'll do is we'll dig down and we'll pull that 90 and we'll do a T so that 90 will still retain in. We'll pull a T back, and then that'll all be trenched. So we'll do power trench, all the electrical, water, and sewer. Those will be trenched back. I think it'll be about 30 feet from where it'll go to where we're putting the unit. And so just a little bit about our specific design, the modal, is that's all the construction that'll actually happen on site. Is we'll just trench that in, we'll pull the utilities, put them in one sleeve. We designed the unit to have just one plenum and one hookup. It's kind of like a plug and play hookup. So when we have those stubs ready to go, the unit will be pushed back and craned back, placed, and then it's just kind of a plug and play utility, water, and power in that one plenum. So it's kind of like it's a one-day kind of hookup. So we designed that very specifically because I'm a contractor and a designer, an architecture designer, and it's just a pain in the butt. It's a huge process, and it's noisy and it's loud, and we wanted to get away from that because that was a lot of the pushbacks we were getting with ADUs is we don't want everybody's backyard to turn into a construction site. So that's why we started our company to do the offsite construction and you place it, and you have a plug and play unit, and they're all smaller units, so you're not being huge, and we fit within most of the setups.
So you're putting them all together, but is that a danger? Or do you somehow insulated it so your electricity line?
There's 3 separate lines. Yeah.
Okay,
You have to have a 10-foot separation in each trench line. So you do your sewer lateral comes, then your water lateral comes, and your power lateral comes. Those can converge within 3 feet of the primary structure and 3 feet within the dwelling. So 10 feet across, those pull back. So it's just 3 trench lines.
I really like that innovation because we have so many above, we have aerial lines in our community, and if having them trenched in is really nice.
Totally, and we've seen obviously with fire department how those can be a pain in the butt. So we're trying to move all that stuff underground and do it kind of.
I thought you were going to have like an organic compost toilet or something.
We tried. Yeah, there's actually a lot of cool technology to allow to do compostable toilets, solar, and water tank. But the city's not quite ready for that, so it's one of those innovations that we do want to push, and we want to be able to get the city on board to start using those things, so we don't even have to use any of the utility from the city. But they're not quite ready, so we're still.
Because that's the expense, the sewer line, all those lines.
It's
How much
expensive.
do you estimate?
So that's why we're doing this first one, to really kind of to do it. It's probably going to be, every site's different, so every length is different, right? So. For my property specifically I can speak on, it's probably to hook up the sewer lateral, the water, and the power into that stub. It's probably going to be about 18,000 or so.
To add to the sewer thing, how you were saying that the ordinance allows you to tie in, a little caveat to that, it's up to the Public Utilities Department to take a look at your sewer, and they can opt to require you to put in a new sewer line, running straight from the ADU to the street, depending on age of the sewer line, different factors that they deem would be necessary to put in a whole new sewer line. So if that's the case, they can get pretty costly. I've heard people saying $30,000 to $45,000 just to run a sewer line.
So, and it depends how far you have to go. Like for 30 feet's not bad. It's like $18,000. It's still an expense, but to run 110 feet to the street and then get permits and gravel, and it gets expensive. So
a DIY, is that right? DIY, do it yourself, or you could just run the Bobcat.
No.
Do you have any other questions from anyone else in the audience?
Yeah, what material are you using to build the structure?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I've designed the unit to be it's a continuous steel I-beam base. So it's built like that. The units are actually overbuilt compared to like a typical structure because they have to be built engineered to actually go down the road. So it's a continuous steel W1030 I-beam base, and then it's typical 2x6 construction from that. So.
I think I heard you say extra income. What is that?
So
can you do Airbnb, VRBO?
I mean, you can. Those are kind of like touchy words because they're not technically allowed. But for me, it'd just be for a tenant to rent out. So I could rent that unit out. For me personally, I'm actually going to live in mine, and I'm going to rent my house out because I'm a single guy. I have a lot more income that can come from my primary structure. It's 4-bedroom, 2-bath. I don't need that much space. I'm going to live in my back unit. It's brand new construction. It's really nice. It's modular. It's really cool. And then I'll rent my actual primary structure out. So in that being, I can get extra income.
And I can go over that.
Say that again.
Are you running a separate power meter?
You can have a sub panel from your meter. It all has to go through the same primary structure.
I was just gonna maybe you both to comment on this, but I'm working on an ADU as well.
Nice.
For my house, kind of similar to move myself into or rent out the main house.
Nice.
But I hadn't realized, exactly, you said this last time, that there was a conditional use process. My bad, being an architect, working with another architect on an ADU in his house, and neither of us saw that, so a little discovery there. But I'm curious for the process. Like, when I went in and talked to the city last week, I was surprised there was only one that had gone through the entire process. Congratulations. Thanks.
And we hope that changes.
Yeah, and I think there's only 2 more in the queue. I've heard there's lots of interest, but then a lot of people don't come back, and I'm not scared of the process. People who are used to construction can kind of do it. I'm just maybe curious from the city's perspective, is there a plan, say in a year or 2, to evaluate this process and perhaps figure out, and I'm not necessarily complaining, because I can kind of understand the need for that, to see how the new ordinance works and what's going on in everybody's backyards, but it does seem like a long time, again, not a problem for me, but also a lot of time for the city, for a little $700 application fee to get how many planners and commissioners and mail and all that kind of stuff involved. Just curious about what the next step might be, if there is one.
So right now, as far as changing what the ordinance is and what's required, there's nothing kind of in the pipeline, but we are keeping track of what ADUs are coming in, kind of the processes that they've gone through, to essentially evaluate that once we get more data and see what, if this process is necessary. Right now, the reason we're doing conditional uses, and just so you know, conditional uses are going to be, or currently are only for R1 and FR zones, so the zones that only allow single family. The reason they're doing conditional use is to evaluate if there's going to be any detrimental effects from these ADUs and be able to have mitigation for those effects. So that's the reasoning that they're doing the conditional use, because the single family zones are going to be affected more than a multifamily zone or a different zone would be affected.
I just wanted to mention, actually, we did say that the planning department has to come back 2 years after when we passed it, which was October of last year, I believe. So there is a review coming up, and they're collecting that information, and we're watching how the process goes. I'm really glad that you're doing this, and personally, I think it's kind of silly that we make our neighbors stand up here and say, I want to change my garage or build this structure. But I'm glad that we're doing the process. We'll see what happens.
Yeah.
And
I think, and I agree. I think they should be permanent across the board. But I also understand, because it is really new. And the cool thing about ADUs is it's been done across the nation. It's been done really successfully in many cities. And I think Salt Lake City's just adopting it new. And there's always that I don't know this yet, and let's make sure it works correctly. And I think that's what we're trying to do with my company and me personally, is go through that process and show that this is going to be a good thing for the city, and hopefully that does change, and hopefully that these can be permitted. And because I think it's a huge step for the city, and I think it's going to help a ton of people personally. So.
there are 3 concerns that I have. One is, and by the way, I'm from tiny town world. I'm from Portland originally, so this is the home base of tiny town. But number 1 is, when I was talking to Chris earlier, he said that, and I didn't realize this, you can only have 1 on your property, no matter the size. You could have an acre, and you can only have 1. Yeah. And I had the impression that we were going to have tiny villages around here, but apparently that's, maybe in the future there will be something like that. I don't know.
And things could always change, down the road. But for right now, that's what it is.
The second one is taxes may go up. So our property taxes may go up as the value of our home goes up, which is a positive thing, but you might have to pay more taxes. That's just one thing. And then the other thing is, I'm just looking at this whole process, and I'm trying to figure out, is this something that, so I went and talked to my insurance company, and I'm like, how are we going to insure your home? How are you going to insure a tiny house? And so my insurance company just today told me, number 1, if it's an attached ADU, then it would be part of not a remodel, but an addition, and so that would be included in your home. But if it's independent, it's treated as a landlord. So if it's on wheels, like a lot of people are building them on flatbeds, and they have trailer beds, they won't cover them. So they're really interesting things. You got to get in the nitty-gritty to know this stuff before you do it. So I'm so glad that you guys are so brave taking this on, because you'll blaze the trail for us.
Well, it's been helpful having you at the meeting today, because I think it's an opportunity for us to ask a lot of these questions and learn more about the process. I'm sure there'll be lots more to learn as we go through it. And I personally look forward to checking out the pop-up that you have.
Yeah, for sure.
How long will it be up?
So right now it's just over at that location as kind of a pre-launch before we launch our website and do some stuff. But we're actually going to be moving it over to City Creek Mall. We have kind of a collab deal with them to actually put it near the food court. So it's going to be pretty exciting, and kind of gives the entire state or whoever comes through City Creek to be able to tour the unit and go through and educate themselves on what an ADU is and what these and be able to walk through it and understand. Because a lot of people think tiny homes and they think trailers on wheels and then you crawling up a little thing in a bed, and that's not what ours is at all. Ours is a fully 1 bedroom, 1 bathroom, full size detached unit with open concept living and kitchen area, and it's got a full kitchen and everything. So we're excited to go over that concept. Just to touch on it, the 650 square foot kind of max for that is, and mine's ours are 432, so 432 square feet is that 32 by 14.
Because this would be great for veterans and people, you know,
We do
the
have other
homeless.
agenda items that we need to
Yeah.
move on to.
No, I'm just so excited
Yeah.
about it. Thank you so much.
Cool. Thank you.
guys, I
Can
appreciate
I
it.
ask one quick question?
No, we have more items.
I know.
No,
I don't.
and then you might have already answered my question, because what I was gonna ask is if anybody that wants an ADU, do they have to come to the community council?
As of right
And
now, yeah.
you did, because you're processing as a conditional use, and conditional use has to come to a community council. Everybody wants one.
Yeah, and it's up to the community council to decide how they want to handle that. We like the fact that you are putting it out there for people to ask questions, but it's up to community councils in their respective areas to decide how they want to collect public input.
So it's really important for us to know the nitty gritty. So I'm really grateful that we're learning this. Thank you. Maybe we'll have a community council meeting in a tiny house in yours.
There you go. Let's do it.
Be a tight squeeze.
Yeah, it would be
Be a
fun.
tight squeeze.
Great, thank you, gentlemen. I appreciate your time. Okay, next on the agenda, we have the Central Wasatch Commission here to talk to us about some of the initiatives that they're working on with other stakeholders in the community. Thanks, Lindsay.
Hi. Hello, everyone. Forgive me, I'm gonna sit. I hurt myself skiing a couple of weeks ago. Yeah. Okay, hello. Hi, good evening now. My name is Lindsay Nielsen. I am the Communications Director from the Central Wasatch Commission, and I am here tonight to just give you an overview of who we are, what the Central Wasatch Commission is, what our major projects are, who we partner with, and then answer any questions if you have any.
Could you mind speaking up a little bit?
Yeah, I can try my best. Yeah.
It's hard when you hurt.
Pardon?
Oh, I just said it's hard when you hurt.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so, like I said, I'm the community up 1/3 of the staff of the CWC. We have a very large staff of 3 people. Our executive director is the former mayor of Salt Lake City, Ralph Becker. Our deputy director is Jesse Dean, and then the 3 of us are the staff. The Central Wasatch Commission of the CWC, we are building new office space in the gateway. We have not had office space to this point. We are excited to get into a permanent space starting hopefully in June, maybe in May. We'll see. Okay, so yeah, that's the admin part of the CWC. What our major projects are. So we work on 3 major projects. First is transportation work with UDOT. So in conjunction with UDOT, we are working on the Little Cottonwood Canyon EIS, which is ongoing. And as part of that EIS, we've also divided that EIS, and really it became abundantly clear that we couldn't look at Little Cottonwood Canyon without looking at Big Cottonwood Canyon as well, because the transportation issues that are happening in Little are obviously also happening in Big.
Excuse me, what does EIS mean?
I'm sorry, I shouldn't use acronyms. It's the environmental impact statement. Yeah. So the environmental impact statement has been revised, and it has just recently restarted, and I should get out my phone, my notes, for what it includes, because it's a lot. Oh, I got ahead of myself though. So the EIS, we decided that we needed to look at both Big Cottonwood Canyon in addition to Little Cottonwood Canyon, and that's where the Transportation Action Plan comes in. The Transportation Action Plan is not a study, it'll be a plan to develop a prioritization list of short, medium, and long-term transportation solutions to be implemented. That's the metric for success for the Transportation Action Plan. It's whether or not by the end of it we can implement the goals, the solutions that the plan develops or figures out, proposes. Okay, so the Little Cottonwood Canyon EIS, the Environmental Impact Statement, held an open house yesterday at Cottonwood Heights City Hall. There we took many comments from the public on the EIS and on the Transportation Action Plan, which I'm going to use an acronym for because it's a mouthful. It's the TAP, the CC TAP, the Cottonwood Canyon's Transportation Action Plan, CC TAP. The EIS, I should say, has been revised to focus on roadway capacity. So because the legislature just recently allocated $13 million to UDOT specifically for a transit hub at the foot of Big Cottonwood Canyon, colloquially known as the gravel pit, UDOT has decided, with UTA and the CWC, has decided to add roadway capacity to the environmental impact statement to look specifically at the feasibility and the environmental impacts of a 3rd lane, specifically for buses going up Little Cottonwood Canyon.
Wait, okay, so not 3 lanes each way.
No, just a new third lane.
A bus
yes.
specific lane.
Yes.
Dedicated lane.
Yes, and it's just a consideration. They're looking at how that would impact the environment through
so how's that going to work when it's snowing 2 inches an hour? A bus is going up every 6 minutes, and I mean, I was there today, and traffic was going 10 miles an hour the whole way down, which is what happens because it's a mountain road. But if we want to get more people in buses, there's no way a 3rd lane is going to exist when the road's going to be snow. Just absolutely no way.
So
unless it's physically separated from.
It would be physically separated. I can't tell you the specifics on it, but it would be designed so it would be only passable by buses. Okay. So that's part of the EIS. In addition to roadway capacity, the EIS is considering avalanche mitigation tactics. So that would be the building of avalanche sheds. That's actual physical giant sheds that would catch snowfall or when avalanche happens. I don't know if you know, but Little Cottonwood Canyon Road is one of actually the most dangerous road for avalanches in the entire world. Wow. Over 400 avalanches happen every year. About 300 of those are
intentionally set off.
Yes, thank you. By UDOT themselves, and that is because that's for safety reasons. And that avalanche mitigation work is a major contribution to the wait time to get up and down canyons. It's because UDOT has to close the road, right, to do that avalanche mitigation work. So the avalanche sheds will help decrease the time that folks are waiting to get up and down canyons on big snow days. Okay? Pardon me?
When you said an avalanche shed, the word is thrown me because I'm used to like in Europe.
Yeah.
Where it's basically it's a tunnel.
Yeah.
So you don't have to actually do avalanche control because if it comes down, it just goes completely over the road.
You reduce the danger.
Yeah. And there would be 3 of them proposed in the EIS at White Pine Chutes, and Little Pine, if y'all know where those are in Little Cotton Canyon. Okay. Trailhead parking, additional parking at trailheads like the White Pine trailhead's really popular in Little Cottonwood Canyon right below Snowbird. Yeah, so they would increase parking within that parking lot and then decrease the on-road parking in an effort to allow cars going up and down the canyon to not have to fight with the cars in the shoulder of the roads. Okay? And then improvements to Wasatch Boulevard. Yeah, making it an easier road to drive on when there's tons of snow and tons of people wanting to get up Little and Big Cotton Canyon. Okay, so that's the EIS. What's going to be focused on in the Transportation Action Plan, which is again that plan that'll develop a list of transportation goals for the short, medium, and long term in both canyons, will be potential for tolling in the Cottonwood Canyons, and what that would look like, a model. Transit options, so increase bus service in the summer, in addition to bus service in this winter for the ski resorts. Okay, and then really big long-term transportation solutions like a gondola system or a rail system in the Cottonwood Canyons. And then pedestrian and bike improvements up and down the canyon roads, and parking structures. All right, yeah, go ahead. What's your name, by the way?
I'm Parker.
Parker?
Yeah, so I spend a lot of time in Little Cottonwood Canyon.
Great, so do I.
Both in the summer and the winter,
Yeah.
and I kind of was discouraged to hear that the people actually part of the Central Wasatch Commission that you're working with, that transit was not actually represented there because UDOT tends to see all these problems as how do we put more cars here, whereas the solution for Little Cottonwood is how do we get more people up to enjoy it. And I don't see how that's going to work with just cars. Like, it just actually won't work. There's no room at the resorts to park anymore. This is all national forest land. Like making White Pine parking lot bigger, making parking structures at the base of the canyon, which is going to ruin the views of the canyon. So I just would really encourage you to look at transit as like a whole system and not just as making more lanes on Wasatch Boulevard, because on a day like today when the road closed twice, you know, there's snowing all day, like the normal ways of like arranging a city just don't help the problem at all.
Okay,
Because, you know, it's all about making it making a reason for people to get out of their cars because it's faster to take the bus, it's more reliable to take the bus.
Totally, yeah. It makes no sense to take a bus right now because it is longer for you than taking your own car most of the time, right? It makes 0 sense. So that is actually being addressed in the Little Cottonwood Canyon EIS and in the Transportation Action Plan. Transit is a major focus of both of those plans. Like I said, the increased bus service, the third lane is specifically for transit, and there would be incentives for folks to get in that bus and not their cars, right? The rail system is a massive transit system, as is the gondola. So we understand that the solution's not more cars up the canyons.
Well, I didn't notice anything about transit only lanes on Wasatch Boulevard. And without that,
the transit only lane would only be up Little Cottonwood Canyon, not on Wasatch.
Like on a bad day, we're not going to save any time. Like there's still going to be people stopped on Wasatch Boulevard.
Totally. So the Wasatch Boulevard is a focus of the EIS as well, and that's being considered. Okay. and I should say the scoping period for the EIS, and scoping is just a technical term for comment period, for the EIS is open now until May 3rd. And there are various ways to submit a comment on the Little Cottonwood Canyon Environmental Impact Statement. If you have comments like Parker's comment, we want to hear it. It'll make the plan better, or it'll make the study better and the transportation plan better. So you can submit those comments. You can find the link on the Central Wasatch Commission website, which is cwc.utah.gov, real easy, or the UDOT website. There's also many other ways that you can submit comments, which I can tell you if you would like. Yeah.
I really like what he was saying, and I think he's absolutely correct. But the thing I'm worried about is we're talking about creating more parking, and that's contrary to our air quality and reducing emissions.
Yeah.
And it seems to me like rail is the only thing that would actually reduce emissions and allow for volumes of people to go up there, but you're going to have parking at the base wherever they pick up. But, you know, truly, why can't we hook up all of our rails so that you can go from downtown Salt Lake? If you're going to open up buses, don't do that. Open up a rail system. But the money, I believe, is there because people go and do it. They would probably love it. If it's fast, they get there, they have more time to enjoy it, and they can enjoy the environment as they're traveling.
These are great comments, and I would encourage you to submit them as a formal comment to udot.gov/Little Cottonwood Canyon EIS. Okay, so thank you. I want to. Do we have a little bit more time? I would say we have okay, so that's a little snapshot of our work on the transportation projects with UDOT. We are also working on federal legislation called the Central Wasatch National Conservation Recreation Area Act. It's a federal lands bill. The landmarks of this bill include designating about 8,000 new acres of wilderness, which arguably is the highest form of environmental protection for public lands in the nation. In addition to that, the bill would authorize some land trades between the Cottonwood Canyon ski resorts and the Forest Service. So right now, how the configuration of public and private land exists in Little and Big Cottonwood Canyon is kind of like a patchwork quilt. It doesn't really make any sense. Some really precious land on the mountainside that contains the headwaters for the watershed that we all here in Salt Lake County rely on to drink is actually privately owned by some of the ski resorts. And so what the land trades would do would authorize the trading those privately owned mountainside lands into public ownership by the Forest Service, and then the Forest Service would then trade some of their publicly owned land that's already been impacted at the base area of each ski resort in the Cottonwood Canyons to private ownership, to those 4 ski resorts, 3 ski resorts as the bill stands right now. But we continue to work with ALTA, hoping to pull them back into the legislation.
To provide more people going up the canyon.
More parking. Hopefully not.
Well, you know, the ski resorts provide it's $1 billion
economic benefit.
It's $1 billion industry in the state of Utah that the state relies on, and so we have to. And they are major stakeholders in the canyons.
So can't they build all this stuff?
And so we have to make sure we can work with the economic interests as well as the recreational interests as well as the environmental interests. It's a really delicate balancing act. We're trying to do it to maintain the natural and intrinsic value that these mountains have as placemakers here in Salt Lake City. It's why I moved back to Salt Lake. I grew up here. I love these mountains. It's why I took this job. So yeah, I hear you, but we have to work with all the stakeholders.
Yeah, what happens up there right now with the LWCC is, and you could probably speak to this better, there are parking lots that are actually leased public land. And then there's this beautiful wilderness land that's owned privately by these resorts. And so the idea is that we'll start swapping some of this stuff. We can give them the parking lots in order to protect this watershed area and stuff like that.
What was your name?
Jeff.
Jeff, yeah, thank you, Jeff. That is a maybe a more clear explanation definition of the patchwork configuration of private and publicly owned lands that exist right now in the canyons. Okay, in addition to the CWNCRA, we're working on an environmental dashboard, and that is probably all the time I have.
What dashboard?
An environmental dashboard.
One question, when you mentioned the folks that are on the board, I didn't hear anything from Peter and Midway Wasatch area. Are there people from there?
Nope. So
Yep,
so we are focusing on Summit County and Salt Lake County. So our boundaries go along the I-80 corridor between the Summit County and the Salt Lake County boundary, and to the southernmost point of Salt Lake County with Utah County.
You would think with Guardsman Pass, which you access from the Midway area, Snake Creek, which is from the Midway area, and Wasatch, where the golf course is and such, that takes you back to Little Common. You might be able to get some support from those folks.
Yeah. How about Mountain
I own a
West
cabin
Association
up
of
Snake
Governments?
Creek, and I don't want any roads going up there.
Yeah, we will. Okay, so there are. So as you know, Brighton Town just incorporated, and we anticipate them petitioning to join the CWC if they want at some point, and we welcome that petition. So we would welcome any petition from Wasatch County as well. Yeah. If you want further explanation about the environmental dashboard, I can give it to you. Okay. Okay. Thank you so much for your time. Appreciate it. Thanks.
All right. Last but certainly not least, Erin. Thank you. Sorry about that.
She sat through all of this.
I'll just start the way I always do. That we all want to go home in 5 minutes. I try to fit it in 5 minutes. Usually I go a little over. I'm Erin Mendenhall. Some of you I haven't met. Most of you I know. I'm your city council person. I'm freezing in here. Sorry, I'm wearing my coat.
She turned up the heat since we got here. I was like trying to get warmer, and we all.
It should be spring. It should be spring. Come on. I'm going to mention a few things happening on the city council right now. One of those is the single room occupant ordinance. And do you guys know what a single room occupancy is? You think of like the boarding houses, the days of yore. 40 years ago, we had 800 SROs, as we affectionately call them, in Salt Lake City. Today we have 50, and all 50 of them are down at the Rio Grande Hotel that you might be familiar with. It's a well-run facility, actually. The RDA owns it, so the city owns it basically, not city corporation, but the redevelopment agency. And it is a shared living space, shared kitchen, and to a degree shared bathrooms. Not everyone shares the same bathroom, but that's a weekly rental option for people. And it is, when we think about the service basically that the motels on State Street and North Temple provide, they are the only immediate low-income, easily accessible housing in the state. And I think we know from our North Temple project area and our coming State Street project area that those privately run motels aren't necessarily serving the clients who are vulnerable populations largely very well. So the city, in looking at sort of that spectrum of housing need, we need all sorts of housing in the city, and we need affordable housing also. And the ADUs is a piece of it, and I like the way Chris brought it up, that it addresses the ADUs address an affordability, because your case is perfect. I don't think ADUs are going to be affordable to rent, but I think they provide affordability for people who are the homeowners to provide new income and allow it to be easier for people to age in place who can have, and I've given you this pitch before, but think about SROs as a different and unique piece of that housing spectrum. So, and I wanted to tell you these fascinating facts that are in our SRO ordinance. If you want it, I can send it to you, or the write-up on it, that in the last 5 years, almost 5,700 apartment units have been built in Salt Lake City in 5 years. And another about 1,800 are under construction right now. And of that first figure, of the 5,700, just over almost 1,500 of those were affordable units. And that is a term that is defined, what affordable is. And there's almost 1,100 additional affordable units under construction right now. we know that that need is huge, but it's different types of housing. So the SROs is something we're considering expanding right now, and similar to the ADUs, the proposal right now is not citywide. And I personally believe we need to look at a citywide application or a more broad application of SROs, because what we find when we look at where they're being proposed and where they are is that they're concentrated in largely in lower income areas of the city. We need to create, in my opinion, geographic equity for housing, and that means making different kinds of housing available more broadly across the city.
I just have a quick comment.
Yes.
That I lived in an SRO for 4 years in a college dorm at college.
Yes.
It's, it's not something that's a flop house necessarily. It's like if you don't need everything that a typical home provides, and you're trying to save money, it's a way to have a roof or your own space with shared amenities that allows you to afford it. So like, I lived in a college dorm. That is exactly the same as an SRO.
And
if not worse, because I shared a room.
There are, thank you for, I was too narrow in my definition. And there's some apartment concepts.
I mean, there are concerns with it,
other
but
cities.
it also allows someone who doesn't need a bedroom, a kitchen, a dining room.
They need a bedroom.
Well, they don't need each of those things. What I'm saying is that for someone who just needs a place to put their stuff and to sleep, and it allows you cheaper places.
Yeah, and there are some apartment types called apartments even, which are isn't that adorable? With a central kitchen on the floor, and anyway, there's iterations on the SRO. Bill, did you have a question?
Yeah, since we're considering adopting this ordinance, does this mean that if one wanted right now, you couldn't build an SRO type of facility? And so that's why we're considering this ordinance to allow people to do it?
They are allowed, and I can tell you after, they're very limited in their allowance, and I can't can it off the top of my head where that is, but I can tell you after because it's almost 8:30.
I would
Congregate. Yeah, right.
I would.
I would just
too.
you, Sarah.
I would too.
So the congregate care ordinance. Do you know what that is?
Yes.
The in-between is the reason we are looking at this ordinance. Do you know what the in-between is?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay.
But not everybody needs.
And their motto is hospice for the homeless.
If you go to their website, they have a lot of stories. They've done a lot of stories and blogs and videos about the people that they're serving, and it's very very powerful.
Yeah. And that is in the ELPGO Community Council, which is it's been a topic of hot debate at a few council meetings. And this ordinance that we're considering is a result of when the in-between was brand new years ago now. They were on Goshen Street in the Glendale Poplar Grove area. They were in a former school, didn't have an elevator, only stairs to the second or to the upper level. Very difficult for people who are at end of life or in medical situations to navigate. So they did some fundraising. They bought the old Hillside care facility that was it's about 12 East on 13 South, right on the hill. You might recognize it. It takes up the whole depth of the block between Sherman Avenue and 1300 South. They're in that facility since June, and that was an approved use within the zone. So they didn't have to go through a rezone process. They didn't have to petition for anything. And when we had to update the ordinance to allow for this eleemosynary use back, now the year is escaping me, I think it was 15, maybe it was 2014. We put a cap of 25 beds on that use. And frankly, it was an arbitrary cap, but that's what fit in the building that they were in, and because it is a citywide ordinance and there's other kinds of the use, that worked for them. But we knew that we needed to do some more work, and the planning division has done years of work now, basically, and finally bringing it to the council. It came to the planning commission a long time ago. Short story is, this would allow certain types of uses in that zone to apply to go up to 75 beds. Now there's a whole bunch of restrictions like how much parking they have and what the fire department, fire marshal says about who they can fit. But if all of those items check out, then they would be able to expand their services. Not changing the building, that's a different process, but expand the services. and Hillside Manor used to serve over 100 patients. They have the capacity for that, and currently the in-between is serving about a third of that number. So, and they know the need is there, but as you can probably imagine, this is a hot subject for a lot of residents, and it's also a very passionate subject for people who appreciate love and want the in-between to exist. So we had a huge public hearing 2 weeks ago, went till like 10:30 at night. It was great. We heard from lots of people on all sides of the subject, and we asked the planning division to look at coming back with some new proposals for us to increase transparency, which I'm trying to, I think in layman's terms would mean we want the residents to be able to see what impacts that use is or isn't having in the neighborhood through a reporting mechanism. And that would be a conditional use, which is another use of the conditional use process that would hopefully create more transparency. Do you have any questions on this? You're welcome. I want to hold, I mean, I've said that the in-between will be held accountable. They need to be held accountable, but we also need to be making decisions based off
of. Yeah, but you asked for more information, which was really important. Thank you.
Thank you, George. Did everyone notice George just gave me a compliment?
Very nice.
Oh, no.
Yes.
Well,
What was I
I
thinking?
think it's awesome that we're taking care of people that really need these services, so thank you for doing that and for
I'm not doing
expanding.
it, but
Well,
I'll let
for
them know.
allowing that, and then now looking at, you know, the possibility of even providing more services, because there are more than 4 people that need help in our community, or whatever that is. So we all know that. But back to the SROs, don't we have a lot of people that already have that? Like that are, I mean, I know it's better to have an ordinance for some people, but a lot of people have roommates and they just take a room and they take a room and they take a room, and it's
That's
it's
different
an
use.
unofficial. It's an
not an
unofficial.
SRO.
It's not considered an SRO.
No.
So
The
roommates
SRO
are
would
not.
have a manager.
Yeah, I can share this ordinance
Okay.
with you, but that's a different use.
Okay, and as you're talking about dorms, were frat houses SROs?
No.
Okay, I was just
No,
curious.
good question. I wish that Chris, our planning guy, was still here to tell you which use that is.
Okay.
I can't tell you off the top
Okay,
of my head. Sarah?
thank you.
So outside of the dorm context, my husband did live in an SRO after he graduated college. It was an apartment complex that only sold, they weren't even studios, they were just bedrooms. You could have a microwave in it, there was a bathroom within the individual apartment, but they had centralized kitchens. And there was a camera in the kitchen, and there was a fridge if you needed to share a fridge. You could also have a mini fridge in your room, but that kitchen was the place where you cooked. And it was really affordable for him. He was unemployed in 2008 after the recession, and it was a great, well-managed place. It was in upstate New York, not in Utah. But for that time of life, it was really, really helpful to have available, and I can see the need for it in our community.
Yeah, definitely. But in terms of community impact, you were saying that it's only certain areas that they're recommending that or looking at that. I'm assuming because we're historically classified as a low-income community, would it impact our neighborhood? Are we part of that area? Because we're from.
Yes.
It is. There are parts of the community, but not
all.
even close to a majority of the community.
Okay.
Is my off the cuff answer to that. But I will, and I can even just give you this copy that I have. But if anyone is interested, I brought my cards, and you can email me, and I'll be happy to share this council staff report. And then there's links to the recommended ordinance itself. But I'll leave this with you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks. Or maybe you
Any
can
other
make a copy of
questions?
it.
George.
CRA, State Street,
Yeah.
Oh, right, CRAs.
Yeah.
hit a brick wall.
Yeah.
What
You wanna
happened?
explain?
Well,
It impacts the community.
well, I don't think it's over at all.
Oh,
I
it's
think,
not, I know, but
So.
it's a big deal if you're gonna have to minimize it.
So the RDA board, approved the State Street project area a long time, what feels like a very long
4 or
time
5
ago
years
now.
ago?
No, like in the last 12 months.
Yeah.
We approved the project area. And more like the last 6 months. And at that point in the process, that's when the RDA staff officially goes to there's 3 taxing entities, the city, the county, and the school district. And when we create, I'll give you the super quick nutshell, when we create a project area, like Sugar House was a project area, it's finished off, North Temple is one, State Street's going to become one. That means that the 3 taxing entities agree to the boundaries that we draw. We draw a line in the sand and say, from this day on, all the taxes above and beyond today, we are going to reinvest in this area according to the plan we've developed with the community, which all those plans are unique to each community. What kind of business do we want to see? What kind of housing? Do we want affordable? Do we want market rate? Do we need community services? Do we want small businesses? Things like that. And so, where was I going with this? The CRA, the 3 taxing entities. So we finished up our plan, said we finalized it, voted on it, said, okay, RDA staff, go talk to the other 2 taxing entities, the school district and the county. Well, they went to the school district, and the school district, I am paraphrasing, I haven't spoken directly to the school district, said, this is too big. The State Street project area is huge, frankly. It's appropriately huge, but it's the biggest one. It would be the biggest one. And they said, I'm paraphrasing from second or third hand, we like the State Street component, we don't necessarily want some other parts of it. And again, I'm giving you indirect information that the RDA staff is working on a couple or a few proposals to take to the school district to say, here's some ways that you could still participate without us having to start the whole process over again, which we amend those boundaries, we're starting a process all over again. So they're coming up with a few different ways they can participate, and I look forward to the, not last night, but the next school district meeting. I'm hopeful that that'll be there.
So theoretically, they could ask for maybe 15% of the tax increment increase in return for the bigger area.
That is a theoretical possibility. Any other questions? Because I think I wanted to tell you one more thing. Oh yeah, school district related. You may have heard that Heather Bennett passed away. Did you know that? Our school district representative. And that was Heather was the first elected woman I made friends with, and the first person I knocked doors for that wasn't President Barack Obama. And she's a wonderful woman, and it's a tragedy that she passed away, and it was rather quickly. But and if you went to her funeral, you heard her amazing children speak, and they're just as eloquent and well-read as she was. And she has 3 children, and her eldest is a son. And last night, the school board selected him as her replacement to the school district board. And his name's Samuel Bennett Hansen, and he was one of 9 candidates that applied. They have a really short process, so they had applications open through Friday, and then last night they interviewed everyone, and by the end of the meeting they selected someone and confirmed him. So we have a new school district representative, and he'll finish out her term. So it might be nice to invite him to an upcoming meeting, and we could get to know him. If anybody not have my number, come see me after. I'd be happy to give you my number. And if you don't get my newsletter, I would love to send you my newsletter, so come talk to me. I have to get your email and your first and last name. And I'll see you next month. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Thanks everyone for coming out tonight. Before we head out, do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
All right. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Adjourned. Thank you.